Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. The envelope smelled like fake roses and desperation. It was thick, wax sealed, with my name written in looping gold script like I was the guest of honor instead of the family ghost. I stood at the mailbox turning it over, already guessing what was inside. And sure enough, wedding invite. Angela, my little sister, the one who stopped returning my calls 3 years ago. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? Inside was the usual pastel explosion, rehearsal dinner details, brunch schedule, dress code, garden formal, whatever that means. But what got me wasn't the invite itself. It was the folded note tucked inside in my mother's handwriting. 5 words. Please don't make things uncomfortable. No, love, Mom. No, can't wait to see you. Just a gentle shove into a room where I clearly wasn't welcome. A minute later, my phone buzzed. Dad, just a single text. Don't bring the past with you. That part made me laugh, as if you can choose to leave the past at home, like forgetting your umbrella. But I wasn't angry, not really. Angela had always been the favorite. Sweet, giggly, wore perfume to gym class. I was the one who came back different, who didn't smile in group photos and kept my door locked even during Christmas. They tolerated me on holidays, but I hadn't been invited to anything since Grandpa's funeral. So why now? Why this? And why was no one saying a damn thing about the man she was marrying? Not one picture, not one story. His name, Brendan, sounded like a placeholder. I Googled him. Nothing. Not even a LinkedIn. That's not private. That's a clean wipe. I stared at the invitation for a long time. Then I packed. Just one gray dress, low heels, a toiletry bag, and the RF scanner I'd never turned in after that Homeland contract in DCA handheld one. High frequency, still tuned to borderland frequencies. Useless to most people. Not to me. I booked a regional flight out of Columbus, headed towards some lakeside estate up in Michigan. Posh place, rented for a full weekend. I'd been given a room, a dress code, and apparently a chance to show I could behave. Fine, I could play nice. But the timing, the vagueness, the groom no one had met, it smelled like something I'd seen before. Not a family celebration, a cover. As I stepped onto the plane, I didn't think about forgiveness or family. I thought about patterns. I thought about how some people throw weddings and others stage distractions. The gravel crunched too loud under my heels as I walked up the stone path. Lights draped over the trees gave the whole backyard that magazine spread glow. Soft, perfect, fake. I pushed open the glass doors to the main hall and stepped in. And just like that, every voice in the room cut off. Forks froze mid-air. Someone coughed. The kind of silence that isn't surprise, it's calculation. Angela spotted me near the entry and forced a smile so tight her teeth might have cracked. Oh, good, she said, lifting a glass. The prodigal ghost hunter arrives. A few people chuckled, unsure if they were supposed to. She came over, hugged me like she was petting a cardboard box. This is Olivia, she said to the group at large. She grows herbs now and hunts ghosts. Among other things, the way she said it, like I was a hobby she outgrew, pissed me off more than I expected. Before I could respond, a tall man in a dark green jacket stepped in beside her. And this is Brendan, she added, my fiancé, soon-to-be husband. Finally, he was good-looking in the way upscale shampoo models are. Clean jawline, sharp hair part, no real story behind his eyes. He smiled and reached out. Olivia, I've heard almost nothing about you, he said with a laugh, like that was charming. Then we're even, I said, shaking his hand. His grip was light, controlled. Way too measured for someone supposedly head over heels. Angela linked her arm with his and pulled him toward the center of the room. Come on, babe. Dad's waiting. I caught my mother watching me from the drink table. Her smile was stiff, hand frozen around a wine glass. She didn't wave, just turned and walked off. Dinner was set up on the back patio. Long tables, white linens, gold chairs, the whole Pinterest fantasy. I found a spot near the end, between a sweaty uncle I didn't recognize and a woman in a red dress who blinked too slow to be bored, too fast to be relaxed. She wasn't drinking. Her posture was too upright. Nails short, shoes flat, eyes locked on Brendan's father across the table. I clocked her immediately. Not family, not friend. Surveillance, maybe freelance, but definitely not here for cake. Brendan's father, Eldon, looked like he stepped out of a corporate ad campaign. Silver hair, wrinkle-free face, black button-down, no tie. His voice had that polished calm you only get from too many years around boardrooms and microphones. He raised his glass for a toast. To Brendan, he said, a visionary, a man of discipline, drive, and global awareness. This union is the beginning of something far more powerful than most people realize. The crowd clapped. Some cheered. I sipped my water and kept my face still. Buzzwords, every single one. Visionary, global, drive. Not one story, not one personal detail. Just keywords for investors who didn't ask questions. Angela beamed like she actually understood it all. I kept watching Brendan. He looked proud, but also distant, like he was already somewhere else. Later, I stepped out toward the far edge of the patio. I needed air, the kind that didn't smell like overcooked salmon and fake sincerity. That's when I heard them. Eldon was around the corner near the hedges, speaking low but firm to someone I couldn't see. The game, he said, isn't played on the board. It's played in silence. I froze. He wasn't talking about chess. My hand twitched toward my bag, instinct, like I had gear to pull. But I didn't bring anything but the scanner. And that was still zipped in my suitcase upstairs. I backed away before they saw me, walked slowly, deliberately, back toward the tables. Angela was taking selfies with her bridesmaids. Brendan was talking to the woman in red, casually, like they'd just met, but his eyes were too still, too familiar. Nobody noticed me, or they were pretending not to. Either way, it worked. I went up to my room after dessert, locked the door, sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone. Screen black, hand clenched tight. Something wasn't right. Not just with Brendan, with all of it. The toasts, the fake guests, the vague praise, the timing. That sentence, "It's played in silence," kept running circles through my head. I'd heard similar lines in different languages, whispered through walls, spoken before drops, or before people vanished. This wasn't a wedding. It was a staging ground. And if they knew I was watching, I had less time than I thought. I lay down, fully clothed, RF scanner by the bed. Sleep didn't come. By morning, I felt like I'd been run over. I hadn't slept, just laid there waiting for something. A knock, a signal, anything. But the house stayed quiet, like the night had sealed every secret in place. Brunch was on the terrace. Sunlight bounced off crystal pitchers of mimosas, like this was some picture-perfect send-off for a royal couple. I grabbed coffee and found a seat near the back, out of the sun, close to the hedges. Angela floated between tables, laughing too loud. Brendan followed behind her, shaking hands with cousins and pretending like he was already part of the family. His movements were smooth, almost lazy. Then he sat across from me, not directly, diagonal 2 seats over, just enough to make it look like coincidence. I glanced up once. He raised his glass, gave me the kind of smile I used to see in briefing rooms. Empty charm wrapped in practiced stillness. And that's when I saw it. A dull silver capsule hung from his neck, half tucked beneath his shirt collar. Not flashy, not jewelry, a custom matte drive, shaped like a pendant, sealed on both ends. High-grade polymer casing. I'd seen one just like it 4 years ago, yanked off the neck of a man who'd been hiding in a freight container behind a textile depot outside Tallinn. That one had a NATO kill list encrypted inside. This wasn't tech for a finance guy. This wasn't tech for anyone without clearance. I didn't blink. Didn't move. I stood up, muttered something about needing more coffee, and walked straight back to my room. Door locked. Shades down. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through the hidden folder I kept buried under fake gardening notes. I stopped at a grainy still from that op. The man in the container, slouched and bleeding. His face was angled away, but his neck was clear, jawline sharp. Same scar near the ear. It was Brendan. Not just someone like him. Him. This wasn't a stranger marrying my sister. This was a reappearance, a buried operation, an unresolved file, now sitting across from me like he belonged. I closed the photo, pulled my suitcase onto the bed, and unzipped the inner flap. The RF scanner was still there, flat, gray, quiet. I slid in a new battery, let it calibrate, and ran a quick frequency check. Low noise. 2 strong pings near the truck bay. Nothing else yet. I checked my earpiece. Still linked. Range held inside the estate walls. That's when it hit me. The wedding wasn't the point. It was cover. A social shield. No one would think to question a private lakefront venue crawling with guests, staff, and noise. Tomorrow, just across the border in Indiana, was the Mid-Tech Summit, one of the biggest US-EU joint tech events in years. Security would be tied up there. Everything pointed to this weekend being timed down to the hour. Whatever was on that drive, Brendan wasn't carrying it for safekeeping. He was moving it. And Angela? She was either the world's most unlucky bride or she'd been fed the soft version. Just enough to feel special, not enough to ask real questions. I stood at the window and watched them all from the second floor. My parents laughing like they didn't notice anything strange, the guests sipping champagne, Brendan charming them like he belonged. None of them saw it. Not the woman in red, not even Eldon. But I did. I didn't text anyone, didn't call it in. Not yet. Instead, I popped the earpiece in, locked my scanner into standby, and went back downstairs like nothing had happened. Let them smile. Let them think I was just passing through. I was in it now. And I don't walk away once I've seen the vault. I came down early the next morning. No makeup, hair still damp. Needed to catch him before the rest of the house woke up. Dad sat at the far end of the dining table, hunched over scrambled eggs and black coffee. Same posture he always had, like he was still grading papers and didn't want to be interrupted. The server offered me toast. I waved it off and poured my own coffee. I sat across from him. Not too close. He didn't look up, just muttered, "Let Angela have her moment." His voice was low, clipped. No morning greeting, just that. I let it sit for a beat, then said, "What do you know about Brendan?" He sliced into a sausage link without flinching, chewed, swallowed. His jaw moved slower than usual. "You're asking the wrong questions," he said. "No, I'm asking the right ones." He finally looked up. His eyes were bloodshot, like he hadn't slept either. "You're doing it again," he said, turning shadows into threats. "Because sometimes they are," I said. His lips pressed together. That's when I knew. He wasn't clueless. He was already in it. Whatever it was. He looked down again, pretending to care about his plate. I stared at him, waiting. The air between us went flat, heavy. Then, snap. Just like that, I was back in that cold debriefing room 6 years ago. Fluorescent lights, steel chairs. The folder on the table with my name across it in red ink. They thought I falsified intel, said I'd scrubbed log timestamps during a cross-border op. They didn't have proof, just doubts. My handler didn't back me. I was one signature away from losing my clearance for good. Then Dad showed up. I never asked how he got the report buried. Maybe he called in favors from his old academic contacts. Maybe someone owed him. But within a week, everything was handled. Quietly, the logs vanished. My record stayed clean. And the agency? They told me I could walk. No formal charges, no apology either. Just an unofficial message. Disappear. Don't cause waves. And I did. I started over, moved to Columbus, bought a garden, let them forget me. Now here he was, same man, sipping coffee like silence could fix anything. I pushed again. "Just tell me if you vetted him." He didn't answer. "Dad." His hand tightened around his mug. His knuckles went white. For a second, I thought he might finally break. Instead, he said quietly, "Don't stir water you can't swim in." And he stood up. No eye contact, no goodbye. He just walked out of the room like I hadn't spoken at all. I sat there, staring at the spot where his plate had been. Whatever this was, he knew something, and he'd already chosen which daughter to protect. I stepped out to the back veranda just to breathe. The morning air was thick with lake mist, the kind that clung to your skin and made everything feel heavier than it should. I leaned on the railing, watching dragonflies skim the surface of the water. No footsteps, no warning. Just a shadow on the edge of my vision. Angela. She stopped a few feet away, arms crossed, hair pulled into one of those perfectly messy buns she used to practice in high school. Her eyes were sharper than yesterday. Her voice was tired. "Don't start this," she said. I didn't look at her. "Start what?" "This. Whatever game you think you're playing. Not everything is a mission." Now I looked. "I've seen this man before," I said. "He's not who you think he is." She flinched, just a flicker. But it was enough. Then she rolled her eyes like I was a problem she'd outgrown. "Jesus, Liv. You really can't help yourself, can you?" I didn't answer. "You hate when I'm happy," she went on. "You always have. Every single time I get something good, You show up with your spy voice and your silent judgment like some middle school ghostbuster. I kept my hands on the railing. Still, steady. She stepped closer, voice rising. You can't stand that someone actually wants me. That maybe this time it's me at the center of something. Not you, not your secrets, not your past. This isn't about me. No, it never is. Until it is. We stared at each other, and for a second I saw it. The girl who used to sneak into my room when she had nightmares, who once made me a friendship bracelet from broken headphone wires and begged me to come home for Thanksgiving. Gone. This man, I started, but she cut me off. I know who he is. No, you don't. You think I didn't check? You think I just let him walk in off the street and propose? I tilted my head. Did you check his file, or did you check the name he gave you? She blinked, mouth parting like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. So I kept going. He's using this wedding as cover. I can't prove it yet, but I will. Angela laughed. No humor in it, just shock. God, you don't even hear yourself, do you? I stayed quiet. You came back from whatever that last job was and never talked to me again, she said. You didn't call. Didn't text. You locked your door and called it love. That hit harder than I wanted it to. You needed answers, she said. I needed a sister. I looked at her. Really looked at her. I want you safe. Her mouth trembled. She blinked fast, then shook her head. Then let me live my own life. She turned and walked back toward the house. I didn't follow. I didn't see Angela for the rest of the afternoon, but I saw Brendan, always in motion, always smiling, toasting relatives, holding babies, dancing with flower girls like he was auditioning for a life he already planned to leave. By sunset, the wedding reception was in full swing. They'd set up a massive tent on the lawn with strings of Edison bulbs crisscrossing overhead, and a jazz band playing like this was a coastal fundraiser. Everyone was loose, drinking, laughing, unaware. I stayed near the back, close enough to hear, far enough not to be remembered. That's when I heard it, crackled through the earpiece I'd tuned low. Brendan's voice, not English. Gina Manau Kaji Iteria. Pakitai Ishena Shionakt Lithuanian. Baltic dialect, sloppy but familiar. I didn't move, just let the words settle. She suspects nothing. The package leaves tonight, not code, not metaphor. Direct. That was it. I walked out of the tent, slow and steady, through the grass toward the caterer's side lot. Trucks lined up like they were part of the scenery. Food service, generator, mobile bar cart. I swept behind them, one by one, keeping low. I pulled the scanner from my clutch and flipped it on. It took 3 seconds to sync. Then, 2 short-range pulses, 1 wideband ping, unsecured frequency, buried inside the cake truck, static line compartment. Small but insulated. Exactly where I'd hide a vault if I didn't want it seen. 1 transport, 1 handler, and a cover event with music loud enough to drown out an entire operation. I reached up and tapped the back of my earring, just once. Ravenlock, I whispered. No dramatics, no sirens, just protocol, quiet and lethal. It went straight through a dormant channel to the embedded team across the state line. A flag like that didn't get tossed around lightly. I hadn't used it in 4 years. The moment I sent it, I walked back toward the party. The air was thicker now, more perfume, more sweat, people laughing at nothing. The kind of atmosphere where nobody noticed who was coming or going. I stepped back under the tent just as someone raised a champagne flute. "To the couple!" a cousin shouted. "To Brendan and Angela!" Everyone turned toward the dance floor, where the 2 of them stood glowing under the lights. Brendan kissed Angela's hand, smiled like a man with no unfinished business. Nobody noticed me adjusting my earring again. Just a small touch. Normal, forgettable, but everything was in motion now. I made my way to the edge of the crowd and stood behind a group of ants cheering for the first dance. My heart didn't race, my hands didn't shake. This part, the waiting, was easy. It was the part after that got messy. Angela's veil caught the wind just as the music shifted, some soft acoustic thing meant for rom-com finales. The crowd stood and turned toward the dance floor, cameras up. Brendan leaned in and kissed her. The perfect shot. Cheers erupted, and then we heard it. Low at first, a hum rolling in from the east. I knew the sound before it even cleared the trees. Rotor blades, the tactical kind. Fast, heavy, sharp. I turned before the others did. The helicopter crested the ridgeline and dropped altitude fast. 3 black SUVs followed behind, tires spitting gravel as they sped down the drive like they owned it. People froze. Then the screaming started. Glasses shattered as guests scrambled from the tent. Chairs tipped, tablecloths ripped. Someone dropped a baby. The jazz band stopped mid-song. Aunt Valerie hit the ground in full sequence, yelling something about Vietnam even though she was never there. Agents poured in, badges flashed, commands shouted. FBI, Homeland, nobody move! One of the caterers yanked off his apron and went for the lake. He didn't make it 10 feet. I didn't flinch, just stood there, hands folded in front of me like a bridesmaid waiting for cake. They moved fast. 2 agents took down Brendan in front of the buffet, face first into the grass. His tux ripped at the shoulder. One of the groomsmen threw a punch. Bad choice. Got pinned to the dance floor within seconds. Another ran and was tackled before he hit the bar. Eldon didn't even try. He stood with both hands up, cool as ever, like he'd been through this before. An agent cuffed him while reading charges he already seemed to know by heart. Angela? She didn't move. She just stood there in her dress, lips parted, bouquet still in her hand. Then her head turned, slow, and her eyes locked on me. The way she looked at me then, not angry, not confused, just empty. Like everything in her body had unplugged. I didn't say anything. She dropped her bouquet, then walked toward Brendan, heels digging into the grass like her legs didn't work right anymore. She dropped to her knees beside him as they pulled him up off the ground. His lip was bleeding, dirt in his hair, hands zip-tied behind his back. Angela's voice cracked. Why? Why did you say her name? Brendan didn't answer right away, just looked down, then sideways, and then, finally, at me. She was the ghost we thought we'd buried. Angela stared at him like she didn't recognize a single piece of his face. Then she looked back at me, but I was already turning away. I walked past the tipped tables, past the stunned photographers, past the flower girls crying by the cake. Nobody stopped me. No one even spoke. The helicopter was still hovering above, kicking dust across the yard like a sandstorm. But I didn't shield my face. I let it hit me. I didn't need to look back. Because nothing back there was mine anymore. I didn't bother changing when I got back to the hotel. Still had grass on my shoes, hair sticking to my neck from the rotor wash. I walked straight through the lobby, past the wedding guests who hadn't even made it to the reception, still in their pastel dresses and patent shoes, whispering like I was a ghost walking through a chapel. The elevator ride was silent. As soon as I hit my room, my phone lit up like a firecracker. 10 missed calls, 23 texts, dozens of notifications from apps I barely used. Some idiot had filmed it. The cuffs, the shouting, Angela screaming Brendan's name. All of it from behind an overturned champagne tower. It was online already, looping on Twitter, pinned on Reddit. That lady in gray just exposed a whole spy ring at her sister's wedding. The clip had captions now, a dramatic soundtrack, memes, comments calling it fake, then calling it real, then calling it the greatest wedding story of the decade. They gave me a nickname, the Woman in Gray. The headlines weren't flattering. Couldn't she wait for dessert? When your maid of honor works for Homeland? Sister or spy? Angela hadn't called, but she sent a message. You always wanted to be the center. I stared at the screen for a while, then turned it face down and shoved it under a pillow. I didn't feel vindicated, just tired. Went down to the bar, ordered a ginger ale, sat at the far end near the ice machine where nobody ever cleaned properly. The bartender was a kid, maybe 25, buzzed hair, name tag read Jason. He poured my drink, set it down, then leaned in a little. That was you, wasn't it? He asked, voice low. I didn't lie, just nodded once. He didn't smile, just said, respect? I slid him a 20. He looked surprised, but didn't say anything else. I finished half the ginger ale, then left it sweating on the napkin. Walked back up the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator. Didn't check my phone again. Didn't want to read another headline written by someone who'd never had to choose between family and duty, between blood and truth. Back in my room, I locked the door, turned off every light, and lay flat on the bed in silence. Let the noise keep spinning out there. Let the internet argue about what kind of woman ruins a wedding. They didn't know me. They didn't know what I'd buried to keep that place from becoming a crime scene, and they sure as hell didn't know what it cost. 2 weeks later, it showed up in my mailbox. Plain white envelope. No return address, no markings. Just my name, handwritten, no stamp. Probably dropped off by hand. I opened it on the porch with a knife I used for pruning basil. One sheet inside, thick paper, Angela's handwriting. I was wrong about you, and maybe about myself. That was it. No greeting, no signature, no plea for forgiveness. Just that line. I didn't cry. I didn't even sit down. I folded it once, tucked it into my back pocket, and went inside. Walked straight to the laundry room, pulled the old lockbox from behind the cabinet where I kept things no one was supposed to find. I opened it with the same key I'd used since DC. Inside was the RF scanner, wrapped in black cloth, my expired agency ID, face faded from sun exposure, and a photo, creased, grainy, black and white, of a man slumped in the corner of a shipping container, blood on his collar, his hand still gripping the chain around his neck. I slipped Angela's note between the photo and the cloth, closed the lid, locked it. Didn't look at it again. Outside, the garden was overgrown in patches, like the weeds didn't know I'd come back. I grabbed gloves, dug into the dirt. The sun was sharp, but the breeze helped. Lemon balm went in first. Good for stress, good for headaches, good for everything no one tells you they're dealing with. I planted in rows, tamped the soil flat with the heel of my palm. Dirt under the nails felt better than screens or statements. Later, I played an old record, Otis Redding, scratched but still warm, and walked to the farmer's market for more seeds. I was halfway through the herb stand when a woman tapped my shoulder. Mid-40s, flannel shirt, sunglasses on top of her head. "You're the woman in gray," she said. I didn't answer, just raised an eyebrow. She nodded, smiling soft. "Thank you." I gave the smallest smile back. Didn't say a word. Some missions end with guns. Others end when someone finally listens.